Gayatri Mahamantra with your back straight, both hands upon your laps, left beneath the right. Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Invocation of the Divine Master, Adiguru Muni Vedvyas. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Deva Sakshat Par Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Akhanda Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Om Shri Gurave Namah. आवाह गुरु रूपेण आवाहयामि स्थापयामि ध्यायामि पूजयामि ततो नमस्कारं करोमि. Shrimed Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 9, verse number, shloka number 12. In continuation to the previous shloka, whereby it was mentioned therein that those who are ignorant, the unwise ones. Who are the unwise ones? They are not unwise from the aspects of their own intellect, but unwise from the aspect that they have not evolved so far in order to understand, discern, and discriminate between something which is going to stay forever and everything that is not going to stay forever. Something which is permanent and something which is impermanent. So, what is permanent? The only thing which is permanent is, the only aspect which is permanent is consciousness. Consciousness alone, Atma, that alone is permanent. It's for eternity, since eternity and for eternity. And everything else apart from that, everything from pin to plane and from a virus to the whale, all, and from flora, fauna, and go on imagining whatever. Anything except Atma, the consciousness, is impermanent. That is not going to stay forever. And that is the thumb rule. Those who now understand, though they have not realized in the aspects of a realized one, the exalted realized ones, Atma Sakshatkar. Though they have not undergone Atma Sakshatkar, yet they very much understand that the impermanent should not become the priority of a being in his life, in his or her life. The permanent should be the utmost priority, to seek the eternal one, to seek the one that is embedded within. And that is what was mentioned in the verse number 11, that the unwise ones are not able to decipher me. They're not able to realize that I pervade into them. The God, the tiny God is there within us. They're not able to understand. Yeah, while I mention that, and I also try to introspect my own self while saying these words, which have been purely extracted from Bhagavad Gita, when I realize within myself, I find that though I am not a realized one, I am yet to experience my self realization. But yet, the firmness of my belief has now strengthened in comparison to what it was a couple of decades ago. And the firmness in my belief that yes, everything else is impermanent and consciousness alone is permanent. And these are the words mentioned, reiterated in many of the scriptures, and also mentioned time and again by the exalted ones as of their own experience. So, therefore, the firmness within me for this particular belief is now well grounded. I may not have realized my own self, but the firmness of belief keeps me moving, keeps me pushing forward whenever it comes to prioritize the permanent over the impermanent. So that was the extract which we draw from the last verse. And in this particular verse, number 12, the divine intuit goes on to mention through Adiguru Muni Vedvyas what is the conduct of the unwise ones. Intellectually, they are very strong, there is no doubt about that. If you try to take a stock of their IQ, it's there, it would touch the summit. But yet, they are not able to discern between the impermanent and permanent, and not only discern, even if they are able to discern, they are not able to side by that. They're not able to drive their own priorities according to that. What happens in an indicative form? This particular verse shall bring before us the spirit of the understanding. Let's go down directly to the verse. You will find the words written in Sanskrit and Hindi, but yet the text of the verse in original shall find its mention in English as well. As you may read the English text, it conveys Mogha Asha, Mogha Karmanah, Mogha Jnanah, Vichetasaha, Rakshasim Asurim, Cha Eva Prakritim Mohanim Shritaha. The first word is Mogha Asha. Mog Vasha, Mog, the word should be understood as something in vain, something that goes in vain, futile, meaningless. So, Asha means expectancy, your expectations. So, meaningless expectations. What does happen? The meaningless expectation result into unmindful acts. There is no doubt about that. So that is an outcome. The unmindful act is an outcome of a meaningless expectancy. You give yourself, superimpose upon your own mind certain hallucinations. Those hallucinations, they are drawn out of your own seekings and yearnings, of certain kind of desires, which you may not be eligible for, but yet you have them within your mind, and they may not be well regulated as well. They may not be according to the conduct of a normal human being, but still you hold within your own bosom certain cravings and yearnings that really want to reach out to cherish themselves, however illegitimate they may be, but still you hold a yearning for that. And when you have such yearnings within you, what is the next step? Obviously, finding the next opportunity whenever it comes available to you, you try to act upon that. You try to fructify your long impending desire, which may not be legitimate one. And then what happens if you're able to cherish them, or even if you have failed to cherish them? You side by the school of thought that will always try to enforce that, yes, it's righteous enough for me to strive and accomplish upon these kind of seekings. Say, for example, people who go out to the party and they try to have some liquor, and that becomes the norm of attending a party. The party shall be no party without liquor. It is futile. You visit a party and there is no liquor being served there. So, what do you say? People generally who are accustomed to this kind of a practice would always say, such a dry party is meaningless. It's waste of time, attention, energy. Let's move out somewhere else and make our own arrangements. So, what is this? Your firm understanding has grounded within you Mogha Jnana, something which is meaningless, and that gets grounded into you as your perception, as your belief. And what your perception is, what you perceive, out of that generates your own communication. You propagate the same way. You convey to the people, yes, it is useless to go to such a party where there is no liquor being served. What is the fun of it? Why was liquor made? At the first instance, it was made to serve the humans. And why do we have all those kind of appetites with us? It's there with us because the Almighty wanted us to cherish the same way. So, what happens is The far-sighted wisdom becomes bereft of its own wisdom and converts into a mere intellect. Intellect is not praised according to ancient Indian wisdom. Intellect, if not checked well, if not regulated, may become a sharp weapon, an arsenal to cut across even the basic tenements of human existence. As my, my own Brahmarishi used to give an example. For example, if there is an economist who wants to remain a pure economist and wants to only serve economics might turn out someday and say that people who are not non-productive, people who are non-productive have no right to exist. They are a burden on the society and burden on the economy. The economy has to spend a lot of money to sustain them, to maintain them, to make them keep living. So they are a burden. They keep consuming so many medicines. They are not productive anymore, and they are just a bundle of expenditure. It's better to get rid of them because in service to economics, they are not required anymore. So he mentioned that if you go and side merely by the intellect will ruin the humanity. The human race one day will find another excuse of another kind and then start eliminating each other, reaching extinction. And that's what is happening even today. We witness that the wars which are ongoing all over the world, wherever there is any kind of an agitation or any kind of a tussle, any kind of confrontation, it is on account of what? It's not on account of any kind of principles, but it basically the economy to prevail upon the others, to possess others, and to possess other for to serve only one and only one interest. And what is that? Economy, money. They just want to possess others to make money out of that. So everything needs to be encashed. Even philanthropy at times is observed, well observed. It is very well serving the interests which are economy driven. So economy at the moment rules the planet, and that's why there are so many confrontations. The human part is missing. Even if there are mentioning about humans and their rights, it's all colored and it is selectively deployed where it has to be deployed, in what form, where it has to be absolutely evaded. So, going by that understanding, such a being who has got meaningless imagination, desires, craving, will always indulge into unmindful acts and also ground its own narrative and try to spread that narrative as the most righteous one all over and shall never become a settled state of mind. Such human beings are always unsettled, scintillating from one end to the other end. They travel between polarities every minute. They are not firm, they are not stationary, they are always flickering one way or the other way. They do not have that resolute will to pursue something which is meaningful, to serve the larger cause. And such people have been termed here as Rakshasim and Asuri. Now, the Rakshas and the Asuri, the single word which can be deployed for both of them, although they mean different, is something which is demonic. The demonic, the Rakshasi means someone who has got so much of kinetic energy, so much of Rajogun, that he or she wants to superimpose itself upon others, come what may. Their interest needs to be served and their interest has to be on the priority, irrespective of the rational or human aspects. Their interest is foremost, even if it is a meaningless interest or unmindful, unregulated interest, it has to be served at all cost. And that shall become the cause for the others to serve. And Asuri means someone who has got a mind which wants to merely kill the interest of others. It will only gratify when it is there. It indulges into to kill the interest of other, to harm others, and to ensure, even at the cost that they have to undergo some injury, damage, or loss, but they would always ensure that the other person should remain in pain. So, offering pain to others, inflicting pain upon others, even at the cost that they themselves have to undergo pain, they cherish that. They get gratified. They are asuri, the most demonic ones. So, these aspects of the kinetic energy and the kind of negative inertia that is the tamogun, these two particular tendencies, they rule the planet, especially when the rule or the norm or the narrative established by unmindful seekings and the unmindful meaningless acts. So this becomes the norm. So thereby, those people have to be really cared about. Although the verse does not mention this aspect to be cared about, I have added it over here. Why? Because there is a basic purpose behind that. And what is the purpose? The purpose is they are under the state of evolution. In the start of evolution, they are in ignorance. They are not able to come out. Knowingly, they are not able to come out. Why? Because the impel of the Maya, the impel of the delusory force of the Almighty is so intense and so strong that even willingly, they try to take an initiative to come out of such unmindful seekings, meaningless acts, but they're not able to do so. They immediately, at every next turn, they fall. They fall on the basis of convenience, they fall on the basis of gratifying their senses, and they fall on the basis of the prevailing norms because they are most justified. So thereby, they're driven by and under the strong impel of the delusory force of the creator, which we understand as Maya. They are not able to come out of that. If something has to be blamed, well, these words of mine have to be very understood with great caution. Not that it becomes an excuse for every wrong. No, 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 not at all. Every wrong has to be handled and confronted with the appropriate, befitting response. So, having said that, this is an understanding which we derive at a macro level after understanding the Vedantic darshan, that those people have to be pitied about because they are not able to relinquish themselves from the impel of the delusory force. Under the impel of delusory force, they lose their far-sighted wisdom. Wisdom has no trace into them. Merely a sheer double-edged sword named intellect remains. And based upon that intellect, they always try to steer through their life either as an aggressor, trying to usurp the interest of others, superimpose itself upon others, or try to harm and gratify the demonic will in themselves that yes, if someone has been harmed, so it's a moment for me to rejoice. So for these kind of people, we must understand that they are in a state of evolution where they will have time whereby they can gain and gather their own experiences, because every wrong action is bound to have its own reaction, and that is going to come. It's going to boomerang upon them. Nothing can stop. It's going to happen. So they have to undergo their own pain. At the same time, I have studied in one of the texts, in one of the book mentioned by an exalted one, saying that it's better to remain in a positive kind of delusory state than remaining in a negative kind of a delusory state. The negative delusion does harm to your own interest and harm through you to others. Whereas the positive delusion, what is positive delusion? Doing good to others, doing good for others. Is it a delusion? Yes, it is a delusion for the reason being because at the end of the consciousness, pure consciousness, Atma, there is nothing which is good and nor there is anything bad. It's absolute neutrality. It's absolutely shunya, mahashunya, nothingness. So it is nothingness over there. To the extent wherever you have something good or bad, that means that it is under the garb of, under the veil of delusion. Yes, this may surprise you. You may find it slightly astonishing at your end initially to accept and swallow this fact that even goodness is under delusion. Yes, even goodness is under delusion, but that is the accepted norm of delusion. And that is the kind of delusion which ultimately shall evolve a being to become an exalted one. Unless you evolve from the negative delusion and transcend into the delusion of goodness, you shall not find an opportunity whereby you will be able to transcend into the dimension of being exalted one. You will not liberate. So, for liberation, the springboard is the delusion towards goodness. So, it was termed by the great master as avidya maya, as negative delusion, and vidya maya as the positive delusion. It's better to undergo positive delusion. The state of positive delusion is to be seen, to be noticed by everyone else as doing good, gaining recognition, more and more of recognition by doing good. People identify you, they recognize you as a person who would always side and remain noble, not ignoble. So, siding by noble aspects and doing noble deeds, if you are known for that, so that kind of a recognition gives you what? Gives you a gratification inside that I am known, I am well known for doing good. People praise me. So that kind of a delusory force of goodness, delusory impel of goodness should always be sided for. And not only sided for, you should always try to serve and promote the interest of people who are into delusionary aspects of goodness by praising them. You did really wonderful. You do a lot for people. You are really selfless person, but all your acts and deeds are for goodness to others. You always serve a larger good. So you hold highest appreciation among all of us. So by saying so, what happens? You're appreciating. You're rendering more fuel to such a person who is always engaged and trying to struggle and slog through by doing good deeds. So offer them your praise, recognize them well, and let them do the same act of goodness more and more. At least they can evolve. So, understanding at a macro level, not at the micro level, at the macro level, where you want to understand things as bare, people under the impel of the delusionary force, though they know, but yet they are not able to act accordingly, because whenever it comes the moment to act, the force of delusion sways them, and all of their efforts to remain unbiased good get thwarted away, because they find around themselves people doing good again under loss, people doing good into the have nots, people doing good into one or the other kind of a trouble, not able to contribute much. So, taking just the examples from the outside world, they again engage into as if the convention must rule. Even if it's a wrong convention, if it's a convention, let me not project it my own wisdom and just go on sailing with the flow. Let me flow with the current, the ongoing current. Whereas a seeker becomes wise enough. If not, the seeker becomes so wise enough that one wants to prioritize only for something which is going to stay, something which is eternal, something which is immutable. Even if you're not able to do that and you remain under the positive impel of delusory force of goodness, at least you do good. You do not become a contributant who always wants to contribute negativism, doing wrong to others and ultimately doing wrong to your own self. So, this is the understanding we draw from this particular verse. In the next verse, which we shall be taking up in the next classroom, it is going to be again another polarity. The beatitude of Bhagavad Gita is that it travels through polarities when it comes to draw a comparison between the demonic and the divine. So a comparison is always there. So in the next verse, we will be able to observe and understand about the other polarity, which is the most desirable one in beings, as comes under the mention of the Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. The service to Bhagavad Gita has been ongoing since the past around 12 years, barring one of the years in between where we had to miss Bhagavad Gita lessons on account of some other subjects. It has been ongoing since the last 12 years. We undertake each and every single verse through a dedicated class, and the programs are held live on every second and last Sunday of the month, 7:30 a.m. in Hindi and 9 a.m. in English. Till the next class, it's again ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है.